Okay, I'm
Yep.
just
Thanks.
recording this particular thing. Fine. So we are starting with Excel VBA programming. So generally, talk about programming language is nothing but a language where you are going to talk to the machine. Okay, so we have many languages. Say Visual Basic is one language, Python is one language, Java is one language, and thing. But see, generally what happens is when it comes to the Visual Basic language or Java language or any this one, when you create an application, they are going to create a standalone application. So they run on its own. So like I think Python and Francis, the other team, they're doing Python also with me. So generally what happens, you create application, it runs in its own interface. Fine. But when it comes to VBA, so it's something like you're writing a program to your Excel. So you're automating Excel or you're customizing your Excel. See, VBA is derived from Visual Basic. So when you talk about a Visual Basic 6.0, is a very popular programming language from Microsoft. It's one of the very popular programming language, and also I can say it's a very easy programming language where you can write the codes in a very simple English-like codes. Fine, you don't have to by heart with a lot of semicolon syntaxes, what is it, the operators and all those things. That's language. It looks like more like an English-like language. And VBA is derived from Visual Basic. So that means it has the same syntaxes as that of a Visual Basic. So now generally people have, they consider like Visual Basic and VBA is the same. Yeah. So actually VBA, when you see the program code, it's the same like the program is written in the same fashion like how your Visual Basic code has been written. But again, Visual Basic is a standalone application, but VBA is the programming language which can be written for any Microsoft applications. Either you can write it for Word, you can write it for Excel, you can write it for PowerPoint, you can write for any Microsoft Office suite. Okay, so here today we are going to learn about Excel VBA. That means how do we write this particular programming to your Excel. Fine. So to go ahead, so today we'll try to find out, we'll try to get an introduction to what exactly is VBA. We'll try to get familiar with Visual Basic application editor. Okay, so how do we write a code? What are the different components are there in that particular editor? So we'll try to find out some basic syntaxes of that, and then we'll try to identify what is the variables, the data types, and the constants in a programming language. And then we'll see some basic things about how do we write a message box, how do we take some input from the user. Okay, so we'll look into this particular thing in today's session. Okay.
Sadiq sir, Anil here. A little one question I have.
Yeah.
When you say like the other programs, like the languages are like
Java and things. Yeah.
this thing, a Word or Excel or other this thing. Is it only limited to that, or VBA is used for anything apart from this suite, Microsoft suite?
VBA is used mainly for the Microsoft suite.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
All
so
right.
Word,
Yeah.
Excel, PowerPoint, or any Microsoft applications
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
enhance that, to customize that. So we use the
Okay.
VBA thing. Fine.
Right. When you say standalone, can you give me one example, sir?
Standalone
The other
application
programming language. Yeah, yeah.
languages. See, something like when I write a program in Java. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what happens is when you run this application, you're not running for within any other application. So when you write a program, so it might be simple addition of two numbers. It'll open its own interface. Okay, where it'll prompt the user, you enter the two numbers. Okay, it does the addition and gives the result. It is not running under
Right.
somebody's framework, but VBA is running under the Microsoft framework. So under the
Okay.
okay, it's called as Visual Basic for Applications. VBA stands
Okay.
for. So that means
Okay.
it is written for the Microsoft applications.
Okay. Got it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So fine, we'll just get an introduction to VBA. So generally we know that VBA stands for Visual Basic for application. So like, Visual Basic was a very popular language. We had a different version of Visual Basic 4.0, 5.0, 6.0. After that, Microsoft came with .NET. Yeah, they came out with 7, 11, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I think 12.0 is the latest version what is in the market. But, you know, it has just taken the syntaxes and things, but it has a slightly different components here because it has to talk with Excel. Okay, so when you talk about Excel, in Excel, what we do, Excel file is called as a workbook, which contains a collection of worksheets. A worksheet contains the rows and columns, that is, we have a cells in that. So that means here, we are going to interact with the cells. We are going to interact with the worksheets. We are going to interact with the workbooks. Okay, so we use those predefined objects to interact with the Excel application. I say VBA is a programming language to create all macros within Excel. So that means is a language specially used only for creating, okay, macros in Excel. We have already studied about macros when doing Excel. How do we record a macro? How do we create a macro? How do we assign a shortcut to a macro and execute a macro? So now you want to create your own custom macro with your own set of code. Yeah, that is where we get into your VBA. Okay, Anil? Yeah.
Yes, got it, sir. Yeah, got
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Although most people use VBA for macro development, VBA is actually much more powerful than just a macro language. VBA sits between the Visual Basic. There is something called as Visual Basic. There is something called as a VB script. Okay. So it sits in between. So that means all these are the flavor of Visual Basic. Okay. See, as the name says, Visual Basic. You have heard about there was a programming language called as a basic, a
Yeah.
beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code and thing. So it was in early 90s, and all this thing was a very popular language. When there was no Windows operating system, everything was a command interface and all this thing. And then when Microsoft came with Windows, so it came with a graphical interface and things. So they they gave one thought for the developer's point of view. Why don't we make an interface for the developer also, which is more and visually appealing? Okay, so then, okay, what they did is they came out with a programming language which was derived from the basic language. They used the same syntax as how a basic language was written, but in basic there was no visual. Okay, in Visual Basic they came out with a visual thing. That means we have a components, we can just click, drag and drop the components, and designing was very easy, and interacting also with was more of a visually appealing kind of thing. So now generally people have always a confusion whether it's a Visual Basic language. No, it sits in between the Visual Basic and the VB script. That means they all have the same programming syntaxes, but their purposes are different. So Visual Basic is for creating a separate applications. It can be a Windows application or any type of applications can be created. Something like we do Python, no? So Visual Basic is something like that. But VBA is a kind of a subset of Visual Basic, I can say. This is exclusively used for creating a what is say programming for your applications. Okay. VBA provides a large portion of the language elements that VB uses. So that means in Visual Basic, we use of different components like classes, objects, forms, and things. Here also we use a similar kind of things. We create a user interface forms. We use the concept of classes, objects, modules, and all these things. So most of those particular components, which was used in Visual Basic, is also used in VBA. Okay, so that is including the forms, controls, objects, and modules. Clear? Yep. Escorts and Anil.
Yeah.
Yep, so fine.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So now when it comes to Excel VBA, so it allows you to automate various activities you do in Excel. So that means, so we do various activities in Excel. So it might be a simple calculation, doing addition of two numbers, or changing the color of a cell, or you want to move the data from one place to another place. So when you record it, so next time I don't have to do exactly, we just call a macro. Fine. Now, okay,
Correct.
we use Excel to analyze the data, create reports, prepare charts and presentation. Presentation is like, once you create this particular report, okay, on that report you have created a chart, and then that chart you're escalating to the higher authority or manager, you're presenting to them. Okay, so for presenting, again, we do all the cosmetic things, alignments, what is it, number formattings and all those things, and then we present it. Fine, we need to do a lot of things when a particular report has to be submitted. One thing is, we need to pull the data from the various sources, consolidate it, apply all the logical operations. It might be filtering, sorting, subtotals, or whatever it is. And once you get that particular final summarized output, okay, then create a charts on that, do the cosmetic, making it good looking and all these things, and then we present it to the managers. Is it? So now if you want to do this, so we need to do step 1, 2, 3, many tasks has to be done. So now what we do, with the help of the macros, we just say, okay, we tell our assistant, like, I'm just going to do this particular task. Next time, on a single click, I want you to do it. Fine. So now the same thing, what you do is, we code it. Okay, whatever the activities has to be done, if a particular report has to be generated, so we pre-code it, and we just call like a macro. Okay, on a single click, we can just call, the whole code gets executed, so the kind of complete reports gets generated, and we can just even mail that report on a single click itself. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. When we are doing all these things, we need to spend quite or some time, a lot of time, repeating the same set of steps again and again. So something like, you have some daily reports or weekly reports or monthly reports, that you need to keep on doing that month on month, day on day, week on week thing. So now, instead of doing the similar kind of job again and again, so we we write the pre-code that, and on a single click, okay, whenever every daily report or weekly report, so we don't have to sit and spend time doing the same job again and again. So on a single click, we can call that particular things. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We may prepare and email same type of reports every week with the different data. By using Excel VBA, we can cut down the time we spend repeating the same steps and improve our productivity. Okay, this is the objective of going for VBA. VBA stands for Visual Basic for Application. Just like you and I have a language, computer program also have their own language. VBA happens to be the language in which Excel speaks. Okay, something like, we say, when you talk about a language, language is used for the communication. So when you want to talk with Excel, so how you are going to talk with Excel? So if you have to talk with Excel, so you need to learn this particular language so that I can talk to Excel. Either you want to write something into a particular cell. Okay, how do we call a cell and how do we fill the value into the cell? So here we can talk, if I know a VBA language, to Excel. Okay, for that matter, VBA is also a language for not only for Excel, so any of the Microsoft suite, what I said, Word, PowerPoint, Access, and things. VBA is easy to learn because it almost looks like a plain English. For example, if you want to just say hello, okay, you want to just say hello, so you can just use this thing called as a message box. Is a predefined method to display a message box, a kind of a dialog box. And what is the message that you want? Say hello is the message you want. So okay, just writing that message as a string, and that hello is going to be printed on the message box. It is that simple to write the code in VBA. Fine.
Okay.
Okay. I think VBA is used for creating a standalone application. VBA is part of Excel program. VB script is a variant of Visual Basic language used for the. See, VB script is used for the internet application. Visual Basic is used for creating a standalone application, whereas VBA is used for creating a program, Excel program. Okay, and they cannot work as a standalone. We cannot use for creating independent applications. Fine. Let us see it practically, like how do we write this particular code? I think I'll just get into my Excel, or let me open Excel. Some Excel was there. Okay. So here we'll see how do we actually write a simple VBA code. We'll just have a look into it. I'm just opening Excel. I'm just opening an Excel file like how we used the regular this one. Okay. So now you want to write this particular the VBA code. Okay, what we generally do is we go for this particular developer tab. So I think this developer tab by default it is not there in Excel because not every Excel user is going to write the code. Okay, so by default this particular tab is not there. If you want to get this particular tab, how do we get this particular developer tab into your Excel? Okay, so since you're going to be as developers now, so you need to include this particular developer tab. So if you want to include this particular things, what I do, I just go to the file. So I'll go to the option. In the option, so I go to the customize the ribbon. In the customize ribbon, so you can see there is a developer tab here. By default, it is going to be unchecked. That means it is not displaying. Okay, there. So now if you want to include it, we just check. When I check this, I say, okay, the developer tab will come automatically. Okay, that is how we include the developer tab. Okay, so if you want to go to the VBA programming, first I need to include the developer tab. Got it?
Okay.
So yeah, to get the developer tab, we click on the file, options, under the customize ribbon, and here. So that is, so we go to the Excel options. Under the Excel options, we go to the customize ribbon. Under the customize ribbon, so we have this particular developer. By default, it is unchecked. We need to just check this. Okay. So I'll just check this. As soon as I check, so it just comes. Now, when it comes, as soon as I hit on this particular developer tab, so you can see we have this particular tab. Something looks like this. We have a Visual Basic. Okay. This is to get into my code window where I can write the programming. I do also have this particular macro. So we know the macros, no, we have recorded macros in Excel when we are doing Excel. So all the recorded macros will be displayed, or when you record a macro, the code gets generated. Okay. So it will, this on the click on this, it will show the list of macros, what is there in your current code. So this is for creating a new macros. So we generally created a macro going to the view window. So we can also create a macro as a developer. You can record a macro as a developer. So we have this relative references. We can also go to this macro settings, security settings. So within the developer window also. Okay. So now what I will do is I want to get into this particular developer. I want to go to my Visual Basic editor. I'll just go to the developer. I'll pin this. Yep. I'll hit on this particular Visual Basic. As soon as I hit on this Visual Basic, you can see what happens. So you get a window. We call this as a Microsoft Visual Basic for applications. You can see it is VBA. And so this window, what you are seeing now, this is called as the IDE. IDE in the sense stands for Integrated Development Environment. Okay. Now, in this particular window, what is there is, see, I have an Excel file here, so which is named as book 1. By default, this particular Excel file is named as book 1, is it?
Correct.
Yeah. And book 1, and it has a sheet. Okay, sheet 1. So you can see here. So it says, so you're using this particular VBA project for this particular book, that is your book 1, and that has one sheet called as sheet 1. Okay, now let us do one thing. Let me add a sheet. You can see if I add a sheet, there is another sheet included, sheet 2, sheet 3. It shows a list of sheets that is there. Fine. Yeah. So now in this window, so we have this particular project explorer. The project explorer shows me At a time, would have opened more than one Excel workbook. It shows me all the workbooks, what all the sheets are there in this. And if you are writing a code, it will even show me the what are the codes modules are there. Fine. Now you want to write a VBA code, we include in something called as a module. Okay. So what I will do is I'll just go to the insert and I'll add a module. See, I'll do one thing. Okay, before we get into this, we'll just record a macro. Okay, and we'll see how the code gets generated. Let us record a simple macro. Let us do one thing is I just want to generate some random numbers. Okay, so I just say is equal to random between, I want to generate a random number between 1 to 100. Fine, this is generating a random numbers. Now, you know what happens is if I write something, okay, so as soon as I write something, you can see this values are changing, because random function what that does is it keeps randomizing this particular thing. It keeps whenever you do any changes, it automatically recalculates. Again, it is randomly generating a new set of values. So now what I want is I want to convert this to values. I want this particular cells, the data which is in the form of functions, I want this to be converted to the values. If I have to convert this to the values, what we do, we just get into the home tab. First we select copy. I need to copy this, and then I need to go there, and then I need to
It's
use the
special, yeah.
paste special values. So I don't want this 3 steps. So what I will do is I'll record a macro first. So what I will do is you can either go to the views and we can record a macro, or in the developers you can record a macro. I just say macro, record a macro. So I just say this is macro for converting to values. Your randomized function you want to convert to values. So I'll just say Control Shift and V. Okay, because Control V, most of the keywords are being reserved. So we know that whatever the shortcut key we want to call it. So if I say Control V, it is going to overwrite the existing Control V feature. Control V is for paste, no? So whenever you say Control V, instead of pasting, it will execute this macro. So it is better you give some name, shortcut key if you want. As I say, it's a macro for values, and I'll just say Control Shift V. Okay, I want this to be executed in this workbook. I'll just say okay. Now what I'll do is I just focus. I say Control A, and then what I will do, I'll just say copy first, and then go to the home, paste special values. Fine, and then that's it. And then I'll stop the macro, is it? So I'll just go back to the views, macros. I say stop recording. So now next time what happens is if I try to do the same job again, ran between 1 to 100, any values, and random between 1 to 100. Okay, it has generated random numbers. I want to convert this to value. I'll say Control Shift
We
and
lost
V.
you. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear
Hello.
you. I can
Screen
hear
is
you.
frozen. It was a little slow for a
Okay.
while.
Now,
It is better.
Can you? Yeah, it's better, I think. Yeah.
No,
okay.
the screen was frozen.
Okay. Now?
Yeah, it's better now. It's good now. Yeah, it's good now.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine, good. Thank you. Fine. You got it. Like, we just recorded things. And after you have recorded, I just want to call that macro. What I do, I just say is equal to ran between, I say 1 to 100 and press enter. Now it is random numbers, but I want to convert this to a value. I don't have to say copy, go to the home, paste special values, nothing. I just say Control Shift V. So this is going to convert this to a value. So you can see it is not changing. Fine. We have done a small recording. So now, once you have recorded this particular macro, we want to know how exactly the code has been written for this. So what I do, if I want to see the code for the macro that we have recorded, go to the macros, go to the view macros. In the view macros, this was the macro, what was there? Macro values. This is, if you click on run, it is going to rerun that macro. But I want to get into the code, how exactly the code was been recorded. If I hit on edit, okay, I'll click on this particular, what you say, edit. So edit will go to the edit window. As soon as I click on this edit, you can see um, this got generated automatically, everything. And you can see there is one more new thing called as module. And you can see this is my macro. The name of the macro says, what they say, macro values. And it is written within a procedure called as, a procedure is defined using a keyword called as sub, and it closes with the end sub. Okay. Just like we had a def in Python, so we use a procedure. We call this as a procedure. It's like a function, but a function which doesn't return a value. So, okay, see this, I did not write the code. This code was generated automatically, and this is we call it a subroutine, or we call it as procedure. Okay, so now the subroutine name is given as macro values. That is the name of the macro, and you can see you have some code which is prefixed with a single line. That means these are comments. Comments is some kind of a description. Okay, this is not for the compilers, it is only for our reference. It says the name of the macro is this, and say keyboard shortcut is assigned for this is Control Shift plus V. And you can see this is the actual lines of code which gets executed when you call this macro. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So there are some kind of code what is written, and this code is nothing but your VBA code, and when you're writing any code, that will be written within the subroutine. We call it a subroutine or call it a sub procedure. Okay. Okay. Now, if I try to explain this, it might just go above the head, but I will write with a simple code and try to explain. So now, one thing when you observe here, so what is happening is it has added a module. You can see previously when I showed this particular window, we had only the worksheet and the workbook. That's it, and the name of the project. So we didn't have this module. The module has got added. Inside the module, the code is been written, and you can see it is written inside this module. Okay. Now imagine I want to write the code. I want to write the code. If I want to write a code, what I will do is I'll just go to the module, or I'll just go to the insert, add a module. Module is a place where we actually write the codes.
Okay.
Okay. So we get the white screen here. So now imagine I just want to write a code which just says prints hello in one of the cell in Excel worksheet. Okay. Fine. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine. So the macros are defined using a subroutine. I just say print hello. Okay. So this is the name of my macro now, what I'm writing. Now, what is that it has to write is, I say, I want it to go to sheet 2 or sheet 1. And in this particular cell A1, I want to write something, say hello. I want to write hello in the sheet 1, cell A1. So what I will do is, if I want to refer to this particular cell, I use a keyword function called as range. Okay. Range. Okay. So I refer to the name of the cell. I say A1. Range of A1 dot value. That means range of A1 refers to that particular Excel cell. Now that particular cell will have a set of characteristics and the functionalities. The value is the characteristics is what it contains, what data it contains. I just say value, and I say what is that you want to write. I just want to say hello. Okay. I've just written this code, and we'll try to call this macro. Fine. I'll close this.
Okay.
Now, if you want to invoke this macro, how do we generally call this macros? We go to the macros, view macros. We show the list of, like, see,
View.
I recorded a macro called as print values. Now I wrote a macro called as print hello. I want to run this print hello. I select this print hello and I just say run. So when I run, what is happening? It is printing hello in this range A1. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Got it. So when you're writing a code, so when you're writing the code, so that means first I need to have a module. Inside the module, we open a subroutine and we define a name for that particular subroutine. And then we say, what is the task has to be executed for that. Okay.
Right.
Or you just want to say, print a message box or something. Okay. So you just say MSG box. Yeah. See, here MSG box is a predefined method which is going to invoke a message box onto the screen. Okay.
Okay.
So when I end on that, I want a caption as hello. So if I write like this, so if I try to run this code, so I can just invoke it from here. So what you do, macros, select it, say run. You can see it says hello.
Okay.
Okay.
You don't
Got it,
have to
yeah.
save it, is it? It's auto saving.
See, like what happens, it comes within Excel. So now you'll be not saving that particular editor file separately. You have to save the whole Excel file. Yeah, a very good
Okay.
question. How do we save this particular file? Okay, so right now what happens, see, I have closed that particular, still this is working. I have closed that particular editor window, but still this program is working. So that means that editor is inside your Visual Basic. Now, what happens if I close this Excel file and tomorrow if I open the Excel file, I might lose that particular file. Okay. So what I will be doing is when I save this particular file with the macro, so I think we would have done this when you're doing Excel, we just go to the file save. No. So when I save this particular file, so generally when you save the file, generally your file will be saved with the extension as
XLSX.
yeah. So that means it will be saved with a type as Excel workbook. So which is your XLSX, Excel XS, SLSX. Fine.
X.
Now what I will do is I'll change here. So here we say Excel. You can see in the save as type. I'm changing in the save as type. I'll change this to Excel macro enabled workbook. Okay, so that
Okay.
means, so I'm not going to save only Excel. I want to save Excel with the macro, and you can save it anywhere. I say I want to put it on the desktop. I say I want to paste it like say book one. Yeah, cool. I'll just say on the desktop, I'll try to save it as book one, and I'll just try to save this. On the desktop, book one. So you can see this is the file which I have saved now. I think this is the previous books. Now you can see 331. Oh, yeah, in the machine it is showing 31 date, 346. So you can see this particular file is having, and see generally your Excel file is like this. Generally your Excel file is like this. Okay, but if your Excel file is with the macro, you can see there are two things. So Excel file contains some code script in that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and also you can see the type of file is Excel macro. This is your worksheets, all this. So but this one is your macro enabled, so that means a single file is containing even the code in that. If I'm not saving as macro enabled workbook, then you'll lose the code.
Okay.
If you save it as an Excel workbook, the normal, and if a file has a code in that, when you try to save, it will try to prompt a message telling that this file contains some code, and if you save it, you'll lose the code. Do you want to save it, or you want to save it as a macro enabled workbook? It will prompt the user. So still you say, no, I want to save only the Excel file, I don't want to save the code. So then you'll lose that particular and the code file. So that is the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility to only save the macro? Just the macro?
No.
Like you can run that on every Excel sheet.
See, there is something called as add-ins. Okay, we have
Add-ins.
something called as add-ins. We can create as an add-in, and we can share that particular add-ins to the different users or things. So they can download that particular add-ins and they can attach it. So you go to the file add-ins and we can attach the add-ins and they can use it in the other places. But otherwise, that is what I said in the starting Excel. So you cannot create a standalone application. It is always going to run inside Excel.
Okay.
Okay. I think Francis has joined.
He joined long back.
Okay, fine. Okay, madam. Please. I'll come up. Please.
Work from home challenges.
Yeah, yes. Big challenge.
What did you cover, Sadiq, now? Just
Um,
want to know.
what I covered. Okay.
Francis, when you joined, that's when he started it.
That's straight away starting with Excel. No?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
No,
just
just
had
for
an intro.
understanding.
He was recording a macro no, when you joined.
Ah,
That's when he started.
okay.
Okay. So we got this particular familiar with the IDE. Okay. I think now we'll see how do we use variable in Excel. Okay. So generally, see, in any programming languages, we have a concept called as a variables. Okay. I think for Anil, it is very new. What is variable? For
Yes.
others, we have done some concept of variables when we are discussing about Python. So generally, when you talk about variables, variables are like a containers. You want to store some particular data. Okay, I need some kind of containers. Okay, and that containers will have a specific data type. Says what type of data it is going to store. So now the purpose of using this particular containers is you might want to do some kind of a calculations, or you want to pass a value to any other function or something. Okay, we make use of this particular containers. Okay, so
Okay.
now when you're defining this particular program, so we use this particular containers very frequently, and that containers in technical terms it is called as a variable. Okay,
Okay.
fine. So when you declare, so first thing is I need to declare. That means, okay, this will be the name of the variable. So okay, so first I need to declare the variable. So the syntax for declaring the variable is something like this. Dim is a keyword to say, okay, I'm going to declare some variable, and then give a name for the variable. So whatever the name you want to use for that identifier. Okay, just like how do you define a name for a cell? No, A1, A2, or you
Right.
can define your own custom name. And there is
Mhm.
some kind of a naming conventions that you follow. It should not have a space. It should not start with a number. It should not, we should not use a reserved words. So similar
Mhm.
kind of a naming convention follows here also. So we
Okay.
can give any name, but it has to always start with an alphabet. Okay, can contain numbers, but it cannot contain a special characters like slash, dot, space, question mark, and all this thing. Yeah,
Okay.
hash and underscore, that characters are allowed.
Okay.
Okay, then the name of the variable, then every variable, the container will be defined with a particular data type. Says what type of data it can store, how much data it can store, the size we need to define. So here we have something called as a data type. Says, you know, what type of data this particular variable can store. Okay, so this is how we declare a variable in a Visual Basic. Okay, so quotes and Francis, this is a syntax for defining the variable in Visual Basic. Dim,
Yeah.
name of the variable as dim, and as is the reserved words, is a keywords. The name of the variable is defined whatever the name you want to do, and data type says what type of data this variable is going to hold. Okay, fine. I think what I
Yeah.
explained, the same thing is written over here in a better way.
Okay.
Data type is when you declare a variable, you should also identify its data type. You're probably already very familiar with the data type because you assign data types to a table fields. Okay, when you've come from the database background, no, SQL and all these things. So where we again create for fields, every field we specify the data types and all. VBA uses the
Right.
same data type to define a variable. The most important job of the data type is to ensure that validity of your data. So that means what exactly type of data you're storing. Specifying the data type won't keep you from entering an invalid value, but it will keep you from entering an invalid type. Okay, so means to say is, see, if I'm storing an age of a person, so when I say age of a person, I want the age of the person to be numeric. Fine, I can restrict that. Okay, defining the data type as int, I can restrict that it should be numeric value, but I cannot say instead of say 10 it is writing as 10. Okay, I can restrict
Mhm.
from that. I can restrict from
Right.
entering as O or XYZ or anything, but I cannot restrict, like if I say age of an employee should not be more than 40, I cannot
Mhm.
restrict that one. Yeah,
Okay.
okay. I think if you omit the data type, VB applies the variant data. Okay, if I'm declaring any variable, but I don't know what type of data I want to store, in that case, that variable can, okay, it's like, you can make use of variable without declaring also. Okay, that option is there in that case. So by default, the data type assigned for that is variant. Variant means Excel will decide based on the type of data you enter. Okay, the data type will be assigned for it.
Okay.
Okay, so that is why we say Microsoft Visual Basic is very comfortable programming language, very simple language things. Data types to your variable. It's the most flexible and VBA own guess at what the data type should be used. Clear? Okay, these are some of the data types what is used in Visual Basic. These are some of the predefined data types which is given by Microsoft. So we have something called as integer. Okay, in Excel we're using int, int, long int, escorts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Excel,
in SQL.
SQL, yeah.
Yeah, we use the integer data type and things. There
Correct.
we use int, int. So here we use the integer. So when you use the
Okay.
integer, it is like, it occupies 2 bytes of memory. Okay. So when I say 2 bytes of memory, it is nothing but, it's something they say 2 to the power of 2 into 8. So that is nothing but 2 to the power of 2 into 8 is nothing but 2 to the power of 16. So that is, if you say 2 into 2 into 2 16 times, so you get value of 65,536. If you
Okay.
multiply 2 into 2 into 2, that is 16 times, you will get as 65,536 as output. 65,536. Fine. So now, okay, int can store both positive numbers as well as a negative number. So that 65,536 is divided into the equal half, that is positive
Okay.
and the negative. So that is from minus 32,768 to plus 32,767 it can store. That means any data where, okay, I want to store a negative value also, okay, or if the positive value not exceeding more than 32,000, so in that case I can use an integer type. But if I'm storing, like say balance amount in the bank, or say fees, so fees of Aptech can be even 40,000, 50,000. If I define the data type fees integer as a data type for the fees column, in that case, so it will not allow you to store if exceeds more than 32,000. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So now when I use a long int occupies 4 bytes. So 4 bytes in the sense it's 2 to the power of 4 into 8. 4 into 8 is 32, no? If I say 2 into 2 into 2, 32 times. So you get some number. So that is almost 10 digit numbers. So this much of value you can store if you use a long int. But if you declare a long int, it reserves 4 bytes of memory. Okay, see what happens when you declare a variable, so it is going to create a space on your RAM. Okay,
Right.
so since it is going to create a space in the RAM, and the RAM memory is very expensive, we need to use a proper data type so that we should not unnecessarily waste. So that means long int can store all the integer values, but can also store much bigger values. But if I'm working with the smaller numbers and all these things, so you'll be wasting the space. Okay, so and you can see we have something called as a byte. So, in computers, byte is made up of 8 bits, 2 to the power of 8 is 2 into 2 into 2, 8 times if you multiply is 256. So value it can store is 0 through 255. Okay. The same way we have a decimal, we have a variant, we have a Boolean. Okay, variant is like, data types will be decided at runtime. Boolean for storing a, true false value. Object for storing any kind of class objects. We'll be looking into that. Strings for storing character data, alphanumeric. If I want to store the name or something, we can use a string. Date for storing the pure dates. Okay, so which can be in any valid date formats, a valid date. Currency is there, double is there. This can store even a decimal values with a larger capacity and okay.
Yeah. Similar to varchar, do we have anything like that here?
String,
Because this seems
string.
to waste a lot of space.
Yeah, we have a string. String is, see, from 1 to 65,400 characters. You can store length of 65,536 characters, something. Okay, so again, it is a dynamic. If I store like say Sam, it is going to occupy 3 bytes of memory.
Okay.
Okay. Varchar string is equivalent to your varchar. let us see an example. How do we use this particular variables? Okay, I think we can see my Excel screen, no?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yep. So now I'll get into my Visual
I
Basic.
don't hear you well. Is it my problem or?
It's breaking and coming or low
No,
voice?
for me it's fine.
So it should be internet problem at that time. Okay. Now it's okay, Kurtz? Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll try to declare a variable and store some value into this. So now for declaring a variable, so imagine like I want to store the name. I'll use a dim variable name. So you can use any name for the variable as the data type, say string. So that means vname is a variable which is of type string. That means it can store a string values. I want to store something. I just say vname is equal to, I'll store my name. Okay. So I have declared a variable. So this line of code is like you're declaring a kind of a container in the memory. And this is you're assigning some value to that particular memory. Fine. In that memory. You want to read this. So how you want to read it? Okay, fine. I just want to print on the range A1. So what I will do, I say range of A1 dot value is equal to, I'll just say vname. Okay. When I give this, what happens is this particular name will be assigned to this particular range A1. If I try to run this particular program, so what, okay, I can just hit here to run, or I can go to Excel and I can call the macro. You can see Sadiq is printing into this range A1 cell.
Right.
Okay, so I've just made use of this particular variable and I've assigned, or you just want to say hello and the name. So what happens, Sadiq is there, so it will print as hello Sadiq. If I run this, and you can see it says hello Sadiq. Fine.
Right.
Okay. Or
Sir, Anil here.
Anil.
So the same way the other data types also, if it's an integer like that range between 30 negative,
Yeah, it can store
same
only
way,
value
right?
within that range. So let us see an
Okay.
example of an
Okay.
integer type. So let us do a program for doing addition of two numbers. Fine. So
Okay.
for declaring that, I'll just say dim, I say num1 as integer. Fine. I say dim num2 as integer. I say dim result as integer. Okay, previously what I had done is I had given a static value. Okay, I wrote the value what I wanted. Fine. Sadiq was a kind of a same value, you know, constant like I had given. So now what I want is I want to read the data from the cell. Okay, so now what I will do is I say here I say num1 number, first number. I say this is the first number. I say second number. Okay, now I say first number value is over here and the value over here. I want to read this values and I want the result to be here. Sum of this. So now see, I want to read the data from B1, which I want to push into num1. B2, I want to push into num2. And in B4, I want to print the result. Fine. I'll try to do this. Yeah. So I'll try to do this particular through the code. So what I will do, I'll say num1 is equal to, I'm trying to assign the value to this particular variable. What is that you want to assign? I say range of B1 dot value. That means whatever the value is there in B1 assigned to num1. I say num2 is equal to range of b2 dot value, whatever the value is there in the range b2, so that assigned to num2, and I say result is equal to, I say num1 plus num2. So that is going to be stored into this variable result. So then I want to print that in which cell? I want to print this in B4. I just say B4. I say range. I cannot call directly B4. I need to call it with the help of range of B4 dot value is equal to result. Fine. If I try to run this particular code, I'll try to keep it parallelly over here. Okay. So if I try to run this code, you can see it says 143. Fine. That is 65 plus 78 is printing as 143. Okay. Now what we'll do is, so your question was, int has a particular limit, 65,536, half of that, okay, positive number, 32,070 something, no? So I'll make this as 33,300. Cool. Now I will try to run this particular code. So to run this particular code, you can see I'm running this. F5 is a shortcut key to run, or you can hit on this.
Okay.
So I just hit on this. You can see I'm getting an error here. So I'm getting an error as overflow. So that means, so this I'm trying to push into this variable of type integer. I'm trying to push this particular data into this particular variable, okay, num1, which is of type integer. So integer limit is 32,000 change. You're trying to exceed more than that. So it says you're trying to overflow that.
Okay.
If I say 33,000, so it'll accept. Sorry, 32,000 something. So that will accept. This will work. So some of that also is integer. If 32,677, no. So if it is exceeding that, you will get an error over here also. Okay, if I say something like 8,000 something. Okay, so this both will fine, but the problem will be at this stage when it is trying to do the addition.
Okay.
Is overflow. Now you want to see where exactly the error is happening. So what I can do is I can add some kind of a breakpoint into the program. So to check how the program flow is happening. So we can also look into this, like, when I'm writing your own custom code and all these things, you can also put a breakpoint and try to find out how the program flow is happening. So what I do is, okay, I just keep a breakpoint here. So that means when I run this particular procedure from the starting itself, I wanted to show line by line how the process is going. Okay. So breakpoint is, okay, when you call this macro at this, when the macro reads to this particular thing, stop, get into the code, and then let the user trace line by line. That is what it is. Okay. Now if I keep the pointer here, that means, okay, when it comes to this line, at that time it is going to stop. See here what happens, this is just a declaration, nothing to read. From here I wanted to debug. So now to run this macro, how do you run? We just say macro. Okay, we have not, what is the name given? Print hello, no? I select this, say run.
Correct,
you can see
correct.
It has come here. At this stage, okay, it has come to this particular, it has broken the program. It has broken the program and gone into the code window, and it just shows me, okay, we have num1 variable. So it is going to read the data from the range of b1 dot value. So now to trace this line by line, I use a shortcut key is F8. The function key F8 from my keyboard, I can use it. Or from here, you can see we have step over, step into F8. When I say F8, you can see stepping, going step by step. So what is happening here is num1 before it was 0, you got a value as 32,000. Num2, it got a value as 8887. Now the result is still 0 now because this program code has not yet executed. Num1 has this value, num2 has this value. 32,000 plus 8,000, that is around 40,000, which is going to fit into this result. You can see at this stage, you'll get an error.
Okay.
Step into, I will get an error. So that means the error is happening. Now the error is happening at this stage because this is of type integer. An integer is trying to store a 40,000 values, which is more than the actual length. Okay.
Okay, got it, sir. Yeah.
And then we are going to print this into range of B4. Chalo. Okay, this was the example of this one. Now, to how do we fix this? It is overflow. That means we know that the data is very big. Either we need to go for the exception handling, which we'll be seeing about later, about how do we handle the exception. Exception handling is almost same like what we did in Python. No, a similar way here also we can do the exception handling to tell the user, no, you cannot enter such a long numbers or thing. Or since we know that because its overflow number is too big or something, you try to give a bigger values here. So I just say as
Long.
yeah, long or double or something. A
Okay.
long integer also will do because it's pure integer value. There is no decimal, so we can just use a long. Yeah, so this should fix the problem. So F8, 8, long integer, or we can say double. Fine, you can store bigger. Okay. Okay. Now, what is that? Now, other thing is, apart from this, so you can see, we do also have something called as the immediate window. You can see in the bottom, we have an immediate window. Okay.
Okay.
Immediate window is, see, I want to know what is the value of num1, what is the value of num2, or what is the value in this particular range of B1, what is the actual data in that, you want to look into that. So generally what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to focus there and trying to fed the value. See, as soon as I keep the focus on that, it just tells me what is the value, no? Range of
Mm-hmm.
B1 dot value is 3200. Now what is the value in num1? Num1 still it is 0 because this line of code is not executed. What is the value of num2 result? Okay, so now we have something called as the immediate window. Immediate window is place where I want to find the values of the variables, values of any objects. So I can try to even retrieve the information through the immediate window. I want to know what is the value of num1 through this immediate window. What I'll do is I'll just put a question mark and I'll just say it as num1. So you can see it says right now the value of num1 is 0. Or I want to know what is the value of this range of b1 dot value. So I can just say range of which cell, I should say b1 dot value. You get with the IntelliSense also what all the properties are there and things. And you can see when I press enter, okay, fine, range of b1 is having a value as 3200. So now I'll just say step into, I just gone one line and I press enter over here. You can see now num1 also got this value. Okay, so when you're debugging or tracing or you want to find any objects, the actual value or any this one, you can go to the immediate window and there also we can put a question mark and we can ask the value like, so what is the value of a variable or what is the value of a particular object in Excel or anything, I can read that information. Okay, not only that, even the Excel information also we can read. Like, I want to know what is the Excel file name that you are using. Okay, so I can just say it as application. I say active workbook. I'll say active workbook dot name will tell me the name of the workbook.
Okay.
Or I want to know how many sheets are there in this particular workbook. So I just say active workbook dot sheets dot count will tell me how many sheets are there. So in this workbook, I have 3 sheets. 1, 2, 3. Fine. If I add
Right.
some, so that time you can see now it says you have 5 sheets. So you want to get any information about what is there in Excel, even the Excel objects, application objects, or any variables information, you can retrieve by putting a question mark. Yes, quotes.
Yep.
And yep. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So see, this is far better than the PyCharm and thing one. Here, like when you're running the program at any stage, you want to know what is the value of the variable. You want to fix that kind of logical errors and all these things. So we can take the help of this particular immediate windows. Okay, not only immediate windows, apart from the immediate window, we do also have something called as an add watch. So add watch is like, you want to keep a watch on a particular variable. Okay, see, like, mainly when you're using this kind of iterations and all these things, this is going to be useful. I'll just show you how do you add a watch here. So I'll just click on add watch and just refer to any name of the variable. So result is one of the variable. I just say okay. Okay, so I can add multiple watches. I'll just go to the debug, add watch. I want to add a watch for what is the value of the variable num1. I just said okay, fine. I say go to the debug, add watch. I say num2, say okay. Yeah. So now when you look into this one, it is keeping a watch on num2, num1, and this one. And when you see, when your program is running, print hello. Okay. When you try to run this particular program at every stage, so right now you can see these codes have not yet executed. The values are 0, 0, and the data types are integer, integer, double. So now when you try to go one step ahead, I'll just go to the debug step into. So debug step into. Just to show me the values. It dynamically keeps changing the values. Debug. Num1. So dynamically it keeps changing the value. I'll just show you that particular thing. Okay, so we have the various windows with the help of which we can try to keep a track, like, what all the values, how it is changing, how the values are, settings are changing. We can keep a track of all this particular thing. Okay.
Right.
Okay, these are some of the data types and all these things are there.
Actually, that program didn't run. Maybe that is why it didn't show the watch.
No, the program was running. So when I go to the watch, so any variable, I just say num1. So watch breakman has true. Fine. So this, as you run F8, so as soon as it changes here, so num1 got a. What is happening is, okay. Right now the cursor is not in your sheet 1. It is referring to this particular, right now in sheet 5, it is referring to sheet 5. So right now, okay, now I've come back to sheet 1, so now it should work.
Yeah.
It'll work. So now what happens, I have a num1, num2 result and all this thing. So it has been declared many times, we can remove that. I just run this, print this macro, run. And you can see every line of code, the value of num1 is this, num2 is this, result is this. After this line of code, you can see num1 is this, num2
Right.
is this, result is this. So after this line of code, you can see, you can try to find out what is the value of this result. Yeah, so it is trying to show. So dynamically it keeps changing. See what happens, what is the difference is, here once you write this, the value will not keep changing dynamically. Here dynamically it keeps changing the value. At every stage, what is the actual value, it just keeps showing. Okay, so mainly when you're using this iterations, okay, so you're in the which counter and all those things, so we can easily do this.
Okay.
Okay. Now what we will do is, that was something to do with understanding the Visual Basic IDE. Okay, getting familiar to this. So what is that? Solution Explorer. So I can say this is my project explorer. It shows me all the Excel file which has been opened. Okay, what are the workbooks are there? Worksheets are there? What are the modules are there? We can have a classes in forms which we'll be seeing later. And this is my code window where we actually write the code. Apart from that, this will show the list of all the functions or subroutines what is there, and we can change from one subroutine to the other subroutine over here and thing. So
Okay.
okay, I think now uh, yes, Francis.
Sorry, I was lost. I got lost.
Okay, now you're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Now we'll see with this concept called as how do you use a message box. Okay, so we know message box. Message box is nothing but a kind of a form, a custom dialog form which appears onto your screen. Yeah. Now in this particular form, you want to have some message. Okay, and okay, that is nothing but your prompt. Apart from that, you can customize the buttons you want. You can customize the title you want. You can even include a help files or something if you want. So how do we customize this message box? We'll see. Because when you're writing the code, okay, you're recording a macro, you execute a macro. After executing all the tasks, I wanted to give a confirmation telling that okay, the report is being generated. So I want a report message box to be displayed with different types of icons based on whether it is either accepting the input from the user, okay, confirmation or things. So okay button or okay cancel or retry or something. I can decide how many buttons, what should be the title you want to have, and thing. How do we customize this message box? We'll look into it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For
1
doing that,
second, let me just make a note of the syntax, please. Sorry.
Sadiq sir, Anil here. I have to log in like 10 minutes.
okay.
So I need little time. So can I like drop from the call now if I or what?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I was
Lit
discussing the same thing with coach also.
Acha.
So you'll be there till 4:30. I was telling.
Yeah.
Every day
Uh,
till what time to what time you can be?
See, around this time, like 4:20, I need a little break in between.
Okay.
So before I log in, because I'll
Okay.
have a call that time. Three, I can start
Nee,
at. Mhm.
we can do one thing. We can start a
Yeah.
bit early.
Yes, we
Might be at
can.
2 o'clock.
Absolutely, I'm fine with that.
Okay. What about Coach and Francis?
Yeah, we are fine.
Okay, so we can make this as 2 to 4 from tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Then might be an
Yeah.
1 hour break, and then again 5 to 7
Yeah.
Python class today.
All right.
Where do you work, Anil?
I work in Epicor. What about you?
No,
It's
uh-huh.
it's towards the eco space.
Okay. What are you into?
I am mostly into training. I take care of training team and quality team. So technical, this is my first time trying to learn technical. Actually, I've done some with Kiran sir. I've done web designing course, HTML and Bootstrap and jQuery and all of that.
Okay.
So with Sadiq sir, I had started MySQL, but I couldn't continue. So now this is the next session I've started. What about
Okay.
you, Coach?
I've taken a break
Is it? Okay.
yeah, to learn
Uh,
this course.
you are into what otherwise?
I used to head strategy for a couple of real estate firms.
Oh, okay. That's a different field altogether then.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, sir, I'll connect maybe to, I mean, tomorrow then, if, if
Okay.
I can go through this, if you're sending this video, today's
Yeah.
recording, I
Yeah.
can go through it once again.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm disconnecting, sir. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. So Anil used to come on weekends, Saturdays. So only
Oh,
on
is it?
Saturdays,
Okay.
and then unfortunately he had some health issues from last 2 months. I think he was in a break
Oh.
because of the health constraints, and the workload from the office also was more.
I mean,
He's
it's
not
an
able.
ITS firm where he works, or?
No, non-IT, but he's mainly into this kind of a stats and reportings and all these things.
No, ITES.
Uh, What is that ITE is?
IT enabled services, call centers and stuff like that.
Might be
Not
something
sure.
like similar to that. So we
Okay.
most of the reports and all he keeps generating similar to that dashboard.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, fine. So again, a very active person. What I've seen. So he
Achha.
did advanced Excel with me, and then he did even MS SQL. But we just started very few session on SQL Server, so he couldn't complete because of his health issues and things. Okay.
I think in the recording we need to edit.
Oh. Okay, chalo. Okay.
Yeah. But,
Fine.
yeah.
Now we'll look into this particular message box. So it takes the various parameters. So when you look into the parameter, prompt is a mandatory parameter, but apart from that, whatever you have is an optional parameter. Fine. So now,
Yeah.
how do we use this particular message box? Let us do one thing, and I want to display this result itself as a message box. Okay. So I just say MSG UX. I say result. So now what happens is, if I try to run this, you can see it displays, okay, that's a method. Okay. I say message box display result. So if I give it in the double quotes, it displays as it is. Okay. If I display, if I use RES, it is referring to some variable. So whatever the value is there, that is going to be displayed. So if I try to run this particular program, the result is been displayed.
Okay.
So now, what we want to see the other parameters here. What are the other parameters that is there when you look into it? We have the buttons and title. So how do we include the different types of buttons and the title? Okay. So how do we do that? Where is the code window? I'll just write a new procedure.
Okay.
MSG box demo. And I say I want to display a message box. I just say hello. Okay. Welcome to VBA programming. Now, you can see this is a mandatory parameter. That is the first parameter what you have passed. It can be either referring to a variable or it can be a string. Now, when you display this message, it just displays hello, welcome to VBA programming. And you can see apart from this particular message, we do have something called as a title. We have a title. We do also have a button. Okay.
Right.
Now I want to customize this title. I want to customize this particular button. Sometimes you can see there will be one kind of an image also will be there where there is a critical or a warning or an information. So we can set up this part. You can customize this particular message box also. So if you want to customize that, so that is where the other parameters are being used. So buttons. Okay. The next parameter is when I say comma. So what kind of button you want to have? So by default, it was OK button. I want to have an OK and cancel button. So what I do is I just say VB OK. You can see there is a list of predefined enumerated values here. Okay. Predefined group of values here. Okay. So we can select. So OK only will give me only OK button. OK cancel will give me two buttons. OK and cancel. Retry and cancel. Question mark. S no cancel. It will show me three buttons. Okay. What you wanted. If I say yes, no cancel. Okay. So now if I try to run this code, we can see hello, welcome to VBA programming. And we can see we have customized the button. We have S button, we have a no button. We do also have a cancel button.
Cancel.
Okay. So we have included three buttons now. We have customized the button. Fine.
Yeah.
Then apart from that,
If you want your own buttons.
Yeah. So in that case, we have something called as a VB default button 1, default button 2 or 3. In this case, you can see what happens is you should be getting two default buttons. So You should be able to do it with the help of this particular thing, default button. So you can create your own button, then you can call it.
How do you name it?
That I need to check it out.
Okay.
Okay, but they have given this particular okay, cancel, okay only, retry, cancel, yes no, cancel. We generally make use of this particular thing if you can customize this one. So that I need to check.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Cancel. Now, with this button, I want to also have a kind of icon. So if you want to have an icon, I'll just add in that is in the same second parameter itself. So I can just say VB critical. I've just given as VB okay cancel and say VB critical. So in this case, what happens is where I run this, you can see a message box is done like this.
Right.
We have customized the buttons and do also have customized the icon that you want to have. Critical means it's like you need to follow this strictly. Kind of error messages we use this, or a warning or an information we can have it. I say information, it just shows something like this, or a warning. So we can have those, we can customize it. Fine. Then what is the next parameter? Next parameter is
Title.
Title. Title is what you want to say Microsoft Excel instead of Microsoft Excel. You want to have say example. Okay, the company name you want to have, or some message you want to have a customize this message. So that is by default it is picking the name of the application. So you can customize this. I just say it's the info. So whatever the message you give, so that is going to be displayed.
It has to be within the codes.
Yeah, as a string.
Okay.
Or you can have a variable and you can call that particular variable.
Okay.
And then the last parameter is you want to provide a help file. So help file is you need to create a HTML file and then we need to include that particular file here. So when the user clicks on that particular help, so it'll take you to that particular web page. Okay. So all these are optional. Only the first parameter is the mandatory. That is the prompt.
What is context?
Help file and the context menu, that is when you right click, you should be able to get either help file or a context menu. So that means the help file can be given as a .html or there is a context file, so for that separate file. It's again a help file itself. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now,
can you please go to the program? I'll just make a note of that. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Okay, fine. So now, see what happens is when the user clicks on OK or cancel, I need to know what exactly how the user has responded.
Right.
Okay. In that case, what do you do? See, in this case, now when I try to run this, you say OK, it is doing the same job. You say cancel, it is just coming out without doing anything. I just want to know how the user has responded to this particular message, whether he has clicked on OK or whether he has clicked on cancel. In that case, what I will do is, okay, I need to handle so how the user has responded. So for that, I'll just declare one variable. I just say dim. I say message box result, MSG result, some name. Okay, as I just declare a variable. So here, what I'm doing here is I'm declaring a variable to hold the result of a message box. So this name can be anything, but this is a predefined class.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll get an IntelliSense also. You don't have to worry. You don't have to wire it by heart. So, but they are prefixed with VB. That means they belong to Visual Basic.
Okay.
Okay. So then what I will do is I'll just say this variable is equal to, I'll call a message. Now what happens is, okay, I'm trying to find out how the user has responded, and that information I'm trying to store into this particular variable. Fine.
Message box rex. Okay.
Now when I call, now I'm going to call this message box, okay, as a function, because this message box is going to return a value telling that how the user responded when the message box was displayed. Either the user said as okay, or the user has responded as cancel. So what I'll do is, if I have to call this as a function, I have to enclose within the brackets. I have to use it within the bracket. If I use in the bracket, what happens? This is going to be called like a function. If I'm not using bracket, it was calling like a procedure. Was not returning any value. Now it is returning something. Whatever the output is returned, I'm just capturing into this variable. So now I want to know how the user has responded. So that I can just print again as a message box as the name of the this one variable MSG. So we'll simplify this variable. I just say as result. That should be fine. Instead of making very confusion. How it was responded. This variable name can be anything, no?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, so when I try to run this, if I say okay, you can see it says okay, you have responded as okay, that is predefined value as 1. Okay. When I say as cancel, you have responded as 2. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So now we can do one thing. If you know the if, so then you can say if result is equal to 1, then what has to be done? When the user has clicked on okay, what has to be done? So that can be done using the if condition. Okay. So I just say if res is equal to 1, so then I just say the, and then I just want to say, I'll display again a message box itself. Say great. Else, that means if he has done no cancel, I just say MSG box as great. क्या बोलते हैं next something fine. And here if else we'll have a closing at end. More of English words here. If condition, then the task what has to be done, else what has to be done. If it is not true, we'll be learning about conditional statements and things also.
Okay.
Okay. So now you can see when it says okay, it says great. When I say cancel, it says okay.
How is a compiler knowing that it has to compile only this much? Because you have written a program before that also, no?
Yes, yes, a very good question. Okay. So now what happens is when it comes to Visual Basic, we call this as event-driven programming. Okay. See, there is a different types of programming. We saw the procedural programming, object-oriented programming. So we have something called as the event-driven programming. So when it comes to Visual Basics, it is not again a pure object-oriented programming. Okay. But it supports the concept of classes and object, but not strictly all the features of object-oriented to be called as a pure object-oriented programming. So no, it is not called as a pure object-oriented, but it's called as an event-driven programming. Okay. So now what happens is, you can see this is one routine, subroutine. This is another subroutine. So now when I'm running, what I'm doing is I have kept the cursor here and then run. So when I keep the cursor here and run, that means it is going to call only the subroutine. If I keep the cursor here and run, it is going to call that as the subroutine. Okay. So that means like when you're calling from the Mac, this one Excel also, what we do here is, yeah, if I'm calling from here, so what I do, I just go to the macros. You can see if I call a message box demo, it is going to invoke this message box demo wala. If I say I want to say print hello, it runs this and says, okay, fine, it is going to print this. Yep. Got it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. We'll stop here.
Yeah, I'll just see the program once.
Okay.
I think you can stop recording.
Yeah.